Hi, I'm Danny Elliott, and this is First Time for Everything, a podcast where I talk with really interesting people from all walks of life about their first time doing something. These people started out just like you and me, interested in something and wanting to try it. Maybe they were a little scared, but something in them made them take that leap towards their dream. I really hope these conversations inspire you to step out of your comfort zone and go after whatever it is you've been wanting to do. And who knows, maybe someday we'll be talking about your first time. Today I'm talking with one of my favorite people on the planet, my longtime buddy, Norman Vladimir. Norman and I met while I was hosting a concert series at a club in New York, and his band was playing after the series I was hosting, and it was like a scene out of a movie. I remember I stopped talking with whoever I was with and was like, who does this voice of an angel belong to? And it was Norman. Norman is a man of many talents. Not only is he a gifted singer, songwriter, but he's an entrepreneur, creative, and public speaker, now living and working in Amsterdam. We both left New York around the same time, me moving to Norman's native Tennessee and Norman moving to Berlin and then Amsterdam. I selfishly wanted to do this episode because I've been wanting to move to Europe for years now, and what better way to get insider info on the process than from a friend, right? I hope all you future expats are taking notes on this one. This is First Time Moving Abroad with Norman Vladimir. Norman Vladimir. I'm so happy to see your face.
I'm so happy to see you too, Danny. Oh my gosh. It's been forever since we've seen each other in person. That's what makes me sad.
Like
That's what makes
a
me sad.
legal amount of time, like a criminal amount of time since we've
Really?
seen each other in person. Anyway, tell the people about yourself.
Oh my gosh, where to begin? No, I'm kidding. So, my name is Norman Vladimir. I'm originally from Tennessee. Grew up, and which is where Danny lives now. So, anyway, so we kind of like, I don't know, somehow switched, flip-flopped, exactly. No, but I grew up in a super small town. At the time I was there, it was about 800 people, and on a farm, and legit farm, and then I decided, oh my gosh, I think I might have a few other things I want to see outside of the small town. So I went to college in Virginia, and then I had weird aspirations to be a corporate lawyer. So then I moved to Washington D.C. But I gave myself a promise because I did sing. I didn't study music. I never studied music, but it was always a part of my life. So I sang in like three different groups in college, and it was just like every day, all day was music, and I was like, maybe I should look into that. So I gave myself 6 months working at corporate law firms in DC, and I said if I like it, I'm gonna stay there and then go to law school. If I feel there's something more with this whole music thing, I'm gonna say no thank you and move to New York City, because in New York you didn't have to have a car. In LA you had to have a car.
Hmm.
That's it. And I didn't want to live in Nashville. I lived in Nashville for a little bit uh, at the beginning of my career, and then I did this whole corporate law thing just to check it out. So
I had no idea that that was part of your journey,
it
but I'm
was,
sure you would
yeah.
have crushed it as well.
You know what was good about it? The pay. Lord, oh my gosh. Like it was like billable hours, and then like time and a half, and then they would like send you a car if you're like working late, but you're always working late. They send you a nice car, and then they drive you back home. So it was like I was for 6 months I was like living the dream, and then I was like, yeah, but I can't do this for life. Like,
Yeah.
no, this is a no. So but for all those corporate lawyers out there, I'm jealous of your pay.
You have probably staff, like if
Yeah.
you're called to be a lawyer, then go thrive in that. And luckily, I'm so
Exactly.
happy that you chose music because that's how we met. So
Yes.
you definitely would have never met if you
Yeah,
stayed.
right? Exactly, right? No.
Oh my gosh. So I guess we both left New York around the same time, and
Hmm.
Matt and I had our reasons for leaving, but what were your reasons for leaving and wanting to and thinking like, hey, maybe Europe is the place for me?
Yeah, so it was very, it really kind of happened quite organically. For me, I had in the back of my mind, I'd always had this curiosity about living abroad. That was just something that like I'd never like kind of explored, but it was just something I was like, I wonder what that would be like. And so there were all these little kind of touch points throughout my life that kind of led me as well to thinking that that might be more of a possibility. And one of them was like when I applied to my university, where did they put me? They put me in the international dorm. Why? So that was the first thing. So all of the kids that I met in college my very first year from were from everywhere else around the world, and I was like one of maybe three Americans on my hall. So that was first step. When I got to college, I ended up like meeting all these people from like Belgium and Switzerland and all this stuff, and they would always have these parties, and I would hang out with them. And I guess in some way, it's kind of this like gravitation to the outsider.
Hmm.
So like the person that doesn't know what the hell they're doing, which was always me. So I was like, yeah, I can roll with these people. They also don't get it. Like so no, but then you know this of course, but I had this amazing opportunity where I got to become the male lead singer for Bill T. Jones, amazing producer and choreographer, and we toured his latest production at the time throughout Europe. We were in Italy, we were in France, we were in the Netherlands, actually, and then so I came back from that, and I was really like, oh, that was amazing. And just kind of the way that like the audiences really like appreciated the creations and our music and everything, but also how like they were so interested in kind of American culture, and I think specifically more like black and black history and black culture that really like intrigued me in a way. I'm like, this isn't your history. This is something that you are just seeing, but you really are interested in, and music as well. So that was that, and then I decided, you know what? I'm gonna try to set up some tours of my own music. So I cold called music venues around Europe, and I was like, hey, so if I come this summer, can I play?
I think I remember when you were doing that, and I was like, look at
You're
him
like,
going
what?
out and getting his life. Like,
But I was just like, you know what? And it was funny that I have to give a shout out to the very first music venue that kind of gave me like the chance. And it was this guy. His name is Christian, and they own this music venue in Berlin, and it's no longer around anymore, unfortunately. But he was like, "Where are you calling from?" And I was like, "From New York." He's like, "What do you want to do?" He's like, okay, send me some music." And I said, and he was like, "We'll book you." Like, and from there it was like step by step. So
it's
yes,
so
yeah,
cool. I mean, I totally agree with you on that. I do feel like just from my experience from, and Matt has said the same thing that you have too, is just there's this curiosity
yeah,
that Europeans have, that is so refreshing. And I think if you are a naturally curious person and inquisitive and just like want to soak up as much as you can about everything in the world, that
yes,
I do feel like there's a kinship there
yeah,
with Europeans that
for sure,
I feel a pull every time I'm there. Like, you just go to
yeah.
a different place and you're like, I'm home. This is it,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know?
and it's the thing that's that's the strangest feeling is that like when you feel that sense of home and you're like, this ain't my country. I've
Yeah,
never been here. Like why do I
I don't
feel
speak the
that?
language.
They
Yeah.
don't speak the language, but then that kind of, at one point, my friends here nicknamed me Norman the Nomad because they're like, where is he now? Like, like he's just
Where
always
in the
touring.
world is
Yes,
Norman?
Norman, exactly, exactly. I might as well have had like if I had a nice trench coat and
Right.
no, but so many people like, and it still blows my mind to this day the sense of trust and care. I can't tell you how many times after music gigs that I had booked, that people were like, "Hey, let's get you a meal before or after the show. Do you have a place to stay?" I'm like, "You don't know me." Offering their homes to me, like it was really quite amazing. I just had never. It was shocking to me because I was like, why would you do this? And everybody's like, "Yeah, but you're traveling and you're not home, so why would we?" And yeah, that really was amazing.
Yeah, I wonder if that's just like a cultural
Yeah.
difference, and that I noticed that I've only ever been to Japan in terms of Asia, but I noticed that same
Mm-hmm.
level of hospitality there as
Yeah.
well, just like abundant hospitality. And
Yeah.
I have, to give the US credit, like I have been to some places where people go out of their way to make you feel welcome, but it's
Yeah.
not that common, you know?
No.
I think
I
also
just
too,
think.
because you're like, are you a crazy person? Do you have a gun? Like,
Yeah.
are you gonna like kidnap me? Like what?
No, but yeah, there's a world of possibilities, and of course, like it always varies. Like there's always big city versus small town. There's all these,
Hmm.
there's like how much level of comfort do you have with people who are kind of coming from other places versus like have you never met anybody from another place? And I get that's all of that, but I would at least say in the big cities that I've been to in Europe, there's been this kind of like, hey, oh, that's cool, that thing that you do. Hey, do you need a place to stay or do you need a meal? And then also you get paid. Oh my gosh, like you
Right.
get like of course that varies per place,
Sure.
some places less than others. I guess the bigger thing is that like as a musician, when you say that you're a musician, people are like, "Oh my gosh, that's cool." And
Hmm.
I so many times in America it's like, how are you able to make a living off of that?" And I
Yes.
never get that question, which is very interesting. Maybe they think it, but they don't say it. So,
Yeah, there's
uh,
definitely more of a like, ooh, tell me more versus like, oh.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Like, oh, you chose that? Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's gonna be a tough one. Anyway.
Like you're reflecting my deepest fears. Thanks.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, and no imposter syndrome whatsoever for any musicians. That doesn't exist. No.
Doesn't exist. No, totally not a thing at all. But also
Oh
to
my
be fair to
gosh.
you, like good
Yeah.
energy attracts good energy, right?
Ah, yeah, and same to
You're
you,
such
Danny, of course.
a
So.
sunbeam of like radiant light, and I just, of course, people are gonna be drawn to you. Are gonna be like, live with us forever.
No, no. Well, thank you. Thank you. No.
Well, let's see. So, once you decided on moving to Europe, like, how did you decide on Germany specifically? Was it from your time like playing there, or?
Yeah. So there was I think two big reasons. One was that after I'd done those tours and I had been to all these different places, I got a sense first off that Berlin specifically was like at least the way that everybody talked about Berlin is like, oh, that's the arts and culture center of Europe. And
Hmm.
if that's the arts and culture center of Europe, that's where you want to be. You want to be in the middle of it, right?
Yeah.
And so, and the other added bonus after living in New York for 8.5 years, and God knows how much rent I paid, how much rent money went
I
out
don't
of
think
my
about
pocket.
it.
I don't want to think about it. But just when I moved, I mean, like at the time that I moved, I was back in like 2014. I think the average like rent for like a room in Berlin was around 450 bucks a month, and so that kind of cost of living was so much lower. So I was like, oh my gosh, if I have the opportunity to live in the arts and culture center of Europe and the rent is not crazy expensive, I really will be able to like travel around and spread the gospel of Norman and like really, and really get to like dig in and have this kind of like home base.
Mm.
And so that was really the thought process. And of course, like, do they offer a visa? What kind of visa is it? And how does that whole process work? And there's a lot of lessons that I've learned from that. Which
Yeah.
was so basically Berlin does offer Americans an artist visa. When you go and apply for it, you find out the exact day that you go into that office. They tell you yes or no, just like right off the bat. So you come in with all the kind of paperwork that they have set on the list. There's like a schedule. It's like you need to make sure that you have like they don't ever say a specific amount of money, just like a decent range of money that you can kind of fall back on or whatever. You need to have a private health insurance and like just some pretty basic things. Like if you needed to move to another city, it would be the same thing.
Mhm.
And so they do look at your previous work. Like it's not like you say, "Oh, today I'm going to be a musician and then I'm going to get an artist visa."
Yeah.
They look at your like all of the accomplishments you've had within your career and then they make a decision based on that. And usually they'll give you 1 year, but sometimes like if you're an exceptional case, they will give you two. And I got two. And
I
but the woman said to me, she was like, she's the woman in the office when she reviewed, she said, yeah, well, okay, we can't give you 1 year. And this is one of these things that are like, it's not like clear English. It's like we can't give you a year, and I was like, oh no, I didn't get it. And she's like, no, no, we give you 2 years because you sang for Obama, and we need you to sing for Merkel. but with no laugh. And so I was like, wait a minute, do I really need to like move it up to like sing for her before I
Did
like
I just book my first gig in your
or, or do I have to like meet the expectation or I'm out, you know? Like no, so I got 2 years, and then after the 2 years were up, I could renew for another 2 year, 2 to 3 years. And so ultimately, there's this thing called permanent residency, and that's the sweet spot. And Europe, the EU decides that there's a law that says if you've been in a European country or EU country for 5 years under a work visa, then you are eligible to have permanent residency. And that just means that like you no longer have to go through the process of renewing visas again. Like you're in it to win it. So
Is
like
that work visa and artist visa for or
yeah,
just
that's all considered like under a yeah, because that artist visa was requiring that I do certain amounts of work and all of those things. So that was kind of the standard, but and this was my experience in Germany is that there were a lot of these kind of asterisks. Some were obvious, some were hidden. And this is what I want to caution if anybody is going to move to Europe for or yeah, in general, move abroad. I would highly recommend getting an immigration lawyer. I did not have one. Specifically in Germany, like there's a couple of things. If you don't speak German fluently, you need to have a translator with you. And if you don't have a translator with you, your meeting gets canceled.
wow,
So
okay.
it's very strict about like they only won't
Efficient.
speak.
I,
It's very efficient, yeah, but it's very strict. Like you need to speak German or have someone who speaks German on your behalf.
hmm.
And then like there are other things like there's a private and public health care system, and by the time of your 5th year you need to be in the public health care system, and that process takes a while actually to get into that, and that's where kind of some of my issues lied because I it was coming in my 4th year and I wasn't in the public health system. And that's weird because it's kind of not determined based on your work. It's just kind of like their discretion. So that's the kind of tricky part. And then the other thing, sorry, I'm throwing all the stuff.
No,
I
that's
feel like now I've become an immigration lawyer.
right.
Like,
On the healthcare
yeah,
tip, though, so in order to become like get into the public healthcare system, is
yeah,
that something you have to apply for? Or is that just them
yes.
recognizing that in the system and migrating you over? Or
Yeah, so that is something, and that's one of the things I didn't know. I didn't know. So and knowing the timing of it and how long that process takes,
okay.
and that's where I think that some of my issues kind of lied because I didn't know that like there's two things, and they're all connected. So yeah, if you can, as early as you can, you should apply for getting into the public healthcare system. The thing that they have hesitation with, particularly with artists, is that like they don't want to have an extra burden on their health system, right? So because everybody pays the same, so if somebody is constantly like a drag and is not making enough money or whatever, then that's another person that's kind of pulling or making a more a difficulty in the system. So there's like a few, I guess, kind of like social paths you can go to apply for that. And then the other thing is, if you want to stay longer, if you want to get that permanent residency that I'm talking about, and this is another thing I didn't know, on the artist visa that I had, it says you don't need to have a pension plan because Americans don't need a pension plan. And then in order to get a pension plan, you need to show probably like 1 or 2 years of work to then say like, hey, now I'm going to start like giving into this pension plan. The tricky thing was I didn't need it for the artist visa, but then I needed to show 5 years of paying into a pension plan if I wanted the permanent residency.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So that automatic, and if you miss 1 month of payment for that, it starts all over. So these are the kind of weird loopholes that you don't know about. And so like I was going into my 4th year, right? Applying, and I was in my tax guy was like, "Hey, so are you thinking about going for the permanent residency?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, but you needed to have started paying to a pension plan five like at the like right when you landed pretty much." And I was like, "How did I know that?" Because the visa said that I didn't need a pension plan in order to have the visa. So it's all of that kind of stuff. Again, if I would have had an immigration lawyer, probably would have gotten a
Sure.
lot of that stuff up front. And there may be even better pathways to getting all that stuff done. So, I'm not going to say that it was fully a bad system. It was, and that was definitely some of my responsibility for sure. But like, those are the things I just didn't know, and I was going in based on like, this is what's in front of me. This is what I do, you know.
Yeah,
And so I
sure.
did everything that was in front of me, but I didn't look enough ahead to
Mm.
what that process for the longer stay would be.
And is that pension plan rule, is that the EU as a whole or Germany
No, that's
specifically?
Germany. That's
Okay.
specifically Germany. So, and the thing is that like, so clearly when I now live in Amsterdam and I live in the Netherlands, and I found the opportunity to apply for, they don't have an artist visa in the Netherlands. They have a small business visa, which is a treaty between the US and the Netherlands. And it has a very funny name. It's called the Dutch-American Friendship Treaty. But
That's so
the
cute.
acronym, I know that's super cute, right? But the acronym is DAFT, which means dumb, like dumb. Like, so it's the DAFT visa. And so,
You know they
so
did
yeah,
that on
you
purpose.
know they did that on purpose. They
Yeah.
could have been the American Dutch. It could have been the ADFT or something like that. Anyway, they were like, hmm.
That's so great.
No, but I have an incredible immigration lawyer here who kind of explained the whole process, and so everything's and gives updates. And so like I feel so much more at ease going through the process, and that visa here is they give you 2 years after you apply, but the difference is you have to do all these kind of like things up front, and it's 3 months before you find out if you decide if they decide to give it to you or not. And
Okay.
there's not many Americans that are on it. Most of the Americans here are working for like multinational companies or like or yeah, or working as au pairs or something. So there's a very small percentage of like strictly kind of freelancer small business people.
Pro cons is sort of like in Germany, you find out immediately if you get the visa, but then it's a longer process to get permanent
Much
residency.
longer
And then in Netherlands, it's a longer process to find out if you get the visa, but shorter process to get permanent residency.
and much clearer.
Okay.
And much like straight up like this is what you need up front, this is what, and then 5 years you get it. So
Okay.
and so yeah, so that's been a huge difference just to have that clarity on how the whole process works, and working with someone who's very amazing and clear about all that stuff. There was other things that were kind of like going on like in the background of my time living in Berlin, and I've told you many things about personal conversations, but like one of the things I realized from a music perspective, at least in Berlin, was that like, as a singer-songwriter, acoustic musician, there weren't that many places beyond where I had kind of already played on these tours. Like there weren't that many spaces that were like celebrated to be like, oh my gosh, there's like a scene, a really big scene here, or like, so that was one thing I was kind of like surprised by, because like the shows that I played when I was traveling were like amazing, and I was like, oh wait a minute, that was it. you know so there was, yeah, I peaked. No. And then another thing, just give you the full rundown, Danny. I was like,
Please do. Because I think honestly, like I feel like, and maybe it's just a circle that I'm in and like
hmm
creatives and we like to travel, whatever, but I feel like this conversation comes up pretty regularly about moving
yeah,
abroad. And
yeah,
I think that there's one side of it that is kind of, it's a dream,
it
but I think
is.
in order to take it from dream to reality, it's really helpful to hear these nitty-gritty details of what
There
it
is
actually
a
takes to make that happen. So, well, yeah, whatever
so much.
knowledge you feel like sharing, lay it on.
Yeah. Yeah, no, seriously. And that's the thing that I mean, I had to live through that, but like understanding that like my dream of like what I envisioned that I was gonna like do and what it was gonna be like living abroad, I grossly underestimated the process. And I say this word lightly, but the sacrifices and the kind of personal growth and kind of like leaning on myself in order to kind of get through so many of these things. Because it's one thing if a gig gets canceled, it's another thing if like your visa gets canceled, like,
Yeah.
and then and that's those are bigger, those are life shifting types of things. So like really just, yeah, being very very yeah, I always say this: feet on the ground, eyes to the stars. Be very grounded in kind of the process, but still know that like there's so many unlimited possibilities that can come from taking the leap. So that's where I am right now.
I love
Yeah,
that. And I feel like
yeah,
you've been able to do so many like really cool things there. And
yeah,
also it's been cool to see you like even branch out outside of music,
yeah,
like doing public speaking and
yeah.
modeling and like all these cool
It's so funny.
things, just like I love it.
Yeah.
I think the older I get to, the more I'm like, let me see, like okay, I know I can do music.
Yeah,
What else
exactly.
can I do? How else can I be a more well-rounded person and explore other pathways in my life?
This is, I just want to touch on this because, again, this is a conversation that we've had many times. But, like, I think that there is something that is such a disservice to musicians when you tell them, like, are you doing just music? And if you're not a musician.
Hmm.
Like, I think that, like, we as songwriters, as singers, as like life experiencers, we have to draw in from all of the different skill sets that we have, from all the different experiences and spaces that we inhabit in order to translate those things because life isn't lived on a music stage. Life is lived in all of the corners, you know? And so like if we only limit ourselves to that kind of myopic view, then it limits also our ability to write about those things and sing about those things. And I think that like I told a good friend of mine like earlier, like it was midway during the pandemic and of course all the music gigs here were canceled. And so I had to really like lean on some of those other skills that I had had from when I worked in different corporate jobs in New York, or like when I worked for this journalist, amazing journalist Bill Moyers, like at PBS, and all these kind of like writing skills and speaking skills and doing voiceovers and things like that that like thank God I was able to kind of like diversify my portfolio because
Yes.
otherwise it was heart-wrenching that I couldn't do music, but like there was still other things that I was kind of getting to celebrate myself and also get a paycheck to pay the rent. So
Yeah,
I
no,
think it's
that's so true, and it's so I feel like that diversification was kind of forced on me because the
yeah,
universe was like really shutting it down for me. By the
yeah,
time my publishing deal came to an end, it was like I just felt like I had my feet shoved into doors that were trying to slam shut on them.
yeah, jeez.
I was getting corns, bunions,
Yeah.
blisters, trying to keep those doors
Jesus.
open.
Dr. Scholl's was not doing anything, was not helping at all.
No, and I was just like, I had to, and like, bless my parents. They are the best cheerleaders.
Yeah.
They really are. Like, they're
They really are. Let me just say that. Your
Maynard and
parents are amazing.
Rosie.
Like Maynard and Rosie.
And
Yes.
my dad was like, Dan, you're always just like one opportunity away from,
Yeah.
things working out. And I was like, but I'm 34 years old. That that like I'm having trouble with my money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that my mental health was suffering so much, and
Yeah.
it's so interesting, like deciding to step back from music in the way I had been doing it for like all of my 20s and early
Yeah.
30s, and start to kind of just try different things.
Yes.
And I was even saying to my parents yesterday, I was like, it's so interesting, like the lack of resistance I've been coming up against versus it was just all resistance near the end
Yeah.
with music.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm learning like you have to really notice those cues from God, the universe, however you want to identify it, and be
Mm-hmm.
like, I think maybe I'm holding myself back from being able to experience something that's meant for me and
Yeah.
also be able to contribute to people's lives in a certain way because I have these blinders on about what I think my life is supposed
Exactly.
to look like, and it's only music because that's all I've ever known
Yeah.
versus let me, that's what this podcast is about. It's like
Yeah.
trying to for the first time and like stepping out of your comfort zone, and like maybe there's something amazing waiting for you. Maybe you're gonna fall on your face, like who knows, but either
Yeah.
way, you're gonna learn something.
And it's
you know?
gonna be a great story. Like
Yeah,
I really feel that like, let me try something and if I fail, it's like, huh, that was funny,
right.
and then like let's go to something else. I told this is what I said to a friend of mine. I was like, a lot of people were like, yeah, so you're not doing music right now. Like what so are you considering yourself still a musician? And I was like, yeah, of course I am. Like that's what that music got me to this point and it will always be a part of my life. And so I really stepped away from people saying like, "Oh, so are you pivoting?" And I was like, "I'm not pivoting. I'm just expanding." Like
Mm,
music will still be in the center of everything that I do. It'll be the thought process. It'll be the way that I approach things. But there's all these other sides of me that I haven't even had the proper opportunity to like sharpen or explore. And like, let's try that, and then let's see where music can also be incorporated into those spaces.
Total, I love
So
that so much, and that's so
yeah,
'cause it's like don't get it twisted. I still get FOMO that I'm not
of
doing music,
course.
and it's a real good opportunity to
Mhm.
check in with myself. And it's funny because I think it's easy to forget that sometimes that like in order to take a chance on something else, you may need to give up something else that you
You have
also
to create
love.
that space.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah,
okay. And it's okay
yeah,
to also feel that like twinge of like jealousy or FOMO or
of
whatever
course.
and like process it and let it kind of show you what's coming up for you instead of letting it kind of like take over and be like,
Yeah,
"Oh my God." Because I think if
yeah,
that 2 years ago I would have totally crumbled and been like, "I've made a huge mistake. What am I
yeah.
doing? Like I should have stayed. I should have continued my career backing vocals. I should still be like, writing, whatever." And
I mean, like when you talk about this, I can relate so much because, I left New York City, and I don't know if you also felt that moment as well, that like, did I make the biggest mistake by leaving? Like everything was flowing, it
I
was
give
there.
up.
I was getting gigs, I was playing, I was getting recognized. Why did I leave? And then because when I moved to Berlin, those were the hardest years of my life. Like no joke, like trying to find like work and like constantly like stressed out like how each next step is going to go. And I was like, well, if I would have just stayed. And then I was like, you know what? You didn't. So let's move forward with where we are and be present, and also know that like all of those experiences that you've had up until this point have shaped you in the way to let you know that like the other amazing things are coming. Like it's not even a, if you go back to that place, you felt wrong in that place at that time.
Yeah,
So that says something as well. So
completely. Yeah, and
yeah,
it's like not forget. I feel like it's like leaving a relationship. It's like
yeah, yeah.
sometimes when you leave, all you can remember are the good things,
All
and
the
you
good
forget
things,
the reasons
exactly.
you left.
Yeah.
And you have to really sit there and be like, but you know that he used to treat you like this, and he used to.
Right, exactly.
You kind of have to really keep that perspective and
So
try and
true.
remain like logical versus emotional about
Yeah,
it, you
yeah.
know?
No, and you can feel those emotions, but recognize that they are coming from a limited view of
Yes.
what the situation was versus the whole view, which was like, you didn't want to be there. That was
Yes.
not your place. And like going back to that place would feel, I'm convinced that going back to that place would feel worse
Hmm.
because now you even know that you didn't feel right and you're going back to it. So it's kind of like you've given up, you know? No matter how high the height is, there's a moment to like be like, I did that. I
Mhm.
have that in me. Now it's time to move into the next space and celebrate like what's to come from that. It doesn't take anything away from what you've done.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. Amen and amen.
Amen. Seriously, seriously. And of course, I'm repeating all of this to myself as I'm.
Right? I'm like, remember these
Yeah, I'm
things.
like, remember these things exactly.
Speaking of like moving on to
Yeah.
like and just, continuing to put yourself in a position to experience new things,
Yeah.
how has learning German and now Dutch been for you? Because those are not the easiest languages to learn as second languages.
So this is fun. I have to say this. I feel that like, I lived in Germany for 4 years, right? And one thing that I realized, at least with my brain, is that I need to be in a place where I feel at ease, welcome, safe, all of those things, and then my brain will open up to languages. I love languages actually, I really do. And like, even when I was in college, I studied French, and I still speak a little bit. I don't use it, it's like a muscle. If you don't use it, you lose it. So my German was very functional. It was very much like, where's the toilet? Like, how much is this? How much is this? And like, very simple. So I would have loved to have really like dug into the language, and I tried. The other thing is that like, at least I found in Germany is if you don't speak at like a high or a proper level, like people don't have time to like say like, oh, how do you say this or how do you say that?
Yeah.
They don't have time for it. Like from the person at the grocery store checking at the checkout counter all the way to the administration at the top levels of the government or whatever. it becomes a barrier as well because you need those things in order to make life function.
Yeah,
So
and the
that was like
opportunity
this
to practice.
and the opportunity to practice, but literally, like I remember when I tried to call about this like health insurance thing, I tried to call the like health administration office and I said, Hallo, guten Tag. Ja, ich habe eine Frage für dich. Sprechen Sie English? Ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch. So I speak a little bit of German, but do you speak English? And the woman on the phone goes, Nein. And then there's like a long pause, and I was like, oh, dann hast du einen Kollege, wir sprechen English. Do you have a colleague who speaks English? Hmm. Ja, ich habe eine Frage für dich. Yeah, I have a question for you. I'm like, yeah. Wohnst du in Berlin? Do you live in Berlin? I'm like, yeah. Dann sprechen Sie Deutsch. Hang up.
Savage.
And I was like, I have not like, and I was like, I
Like,
was
wait,
trying.
am I in America?
Exactly. And I was like, I was trying. Come on. Like, I asked in German, can you speak? Can you? And then it was like a no. It was like, so then, so I can tell you a really quick little funny story. When I applied, so coming with all of that stress of like always in Germany, you better speak German or it's not going to happen. I come to the Netherlands to apply for my temporary visa while they're waiting to make the decision for whether I get the visa. So I had to go to this visa office and I was like, you know what, this time I'm just going to be ready. I'm going to learn the phrase. I hadn't learned Dutch at the time. I'm going to learn how to say I have an appointment at this time and then just give them my papers. Like simple. And so I go to the counter and there's this like older man that's sitting there and he goes, hello. And I was like, hi. Ik heb een afspraak om 1 uur, which means I have an appointment at 1 p.m. And then he says, "Do you speak English?" I said, yes. He goes, "Oh, thank God." So one thing I've learned is like Dutch people love a joke. They love like a little. So then I was like, he's like, so you have an appointment at 1. That was very good. I was like, oh, thank you. He goes, yeah, but you're here at 12:30. And I was like, yeah, well, I need to be here on time because I need to be early. He goes, yeah, but 30 minutes. I mean, you could take a nap. That's what he says. And so then his other colleague comes up and she says, yeah, oh, is he helping you? He's like, yeah. He goes, yeah, he has an appointment at 1 o'clock. Oh, but you're here at 12:30. I mean, you could have taken a nap. I was like, is this a comedy show? Like, what is this? Like, and they say like, well, you can sit over there and wait. They'll come get you. By the way, we have coffee, tea. We also have hot chocolate. Like, I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Like, and then it was just so like nice. And then afterwards, they were like, how did we do? Did you enjoy the experience of And I was like, never in Germany. Never would have
Oh
happened in
my God. I
Germany.
feel like that's such a great example of like quality of life European culture.
Yes, yes. It was like night and day, the experience. It was amazing. So
Oh my
that
God.
really also set the tone for like the whole process when I was getting the visa here. It was just so like humane. It really felt very like we care about you and even if for some reason like I didn't have like a document, they were like, "Hey, well, we'll just set another appointment. No worries. Don't stress. Like just come
Yeah.
back and make sure that you have this and yeah, we'll get it all together. It'll be fine."
This could lead into a much deeper thing, but just
Yeah, I
on
know.
a topical level,
Yeah.
because I feel like this is something that's important for people to think about when choosing like what country they want to move to.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that kind of difference in the way that people responded to you speaking English? Do you think there's anything to do with like, does Germany feel like more of like a nationalist type of place versus the Netherlands, or like, is there anything to that, or?
So, no, you know what? I wouldn't say nationalist. I would say that Germany is 80 million people
Mhm.
and the Netherlands is 17. And
Wow.
so I think it's the same as the kind of divide between big city and small city. Big city, we ain't got time for you. There's so many people.
Sure.
Small town is like, oh, who are you? Where are you from? Where are you going? And like, okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay. Like, and everybody always jokes about this, specifically about Amsterdam. It's a major metropolitan city, but it feels like a village.
It
And
does. Yeah.
when I first heard that, it kind of made me nervous because I was like, oh, well, does that mean that like it's all like very like, oh, you one false move and blah blah blah, and we're always watching you? It's like, no, it's that like everybody feels connected in some way to this kind of little experiment of Amsterdam. And so like you also have your role to play, even if you're not from here, that your perspective is valued, your what you bring from a yeah cultural and from music and those things are like adding to the fabric of the city rather than like oh you're one of the other people you stay over there so that really helped and I have to say I keep telling a few people about this and of course my Dutch friends are surprised because they've never had to go through the process of getting a visa in their country so they're like what's it like you know and I said to them, I was like, there was a moment where and I'm not a crier. I'm very emotional, but I'm not a crier. And nothing's wrong with crying. I want to cry, but I'm just not my thing. There was a moment at the last steps of when I had to turn in my last documents for my visa, and I was sitting with the woman, and she was putting the information in the system, and she said, "Okay, now you have that you're in the system." And she's like, and you have like a social security number now, and she's like, you're in. And if you ever leave us, you know, you can deactivate this, but then when you come back, it's the same number. So we hope that you never do that. And then she said, and last thing I want to say is welcome. Well, they say welcome in the Netherlands. And this was like after all of the time that I spent in Germany and all of the struggle and stuff, I realized nobody had ever welcomed me to the country. And that little moment right there of saying like, welcome, we are so excited to have you, really gave to me like a feeling that like, oh my gosh, like that really means something. And then it's like, of course, I want to do what I can to like, you know, make you proud.
That's so beautiful. I feel like
Yeah.
the older I get, the more prone I am to crying over beautiful things.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like a hormonal shift or what. It's like that is
Listen, I do get more of the little choke up thing. I still it's not the tears, but the yeah, but this was
yeah.
one of those moments because I was just like, no one ever said that to me, you know. Like,
But it just feels like such a present way to approach engaging with people,
yeah,
and that in turn does inspire people to want to like respond differently
yeah,
and work differently and live differently. And by
yeah.
differently I mean better. That's so beautiful.
I will say one other kind of, at least because now I can really compare and contrast like the cultural difference between, at least my experience in Germany versus the Netherlands. There was one situation, so I was moving into the apartment that I'm in now,
Mhm.
with my wonderful roommate Sam. He's awesome. He's also a musician. But when I was moving in, my landlord at the time was like, he was away, so he wasn't able to like send me the document. He was like, yeah, of course you can move in. I'll when I get back, I'll send you the document, everything. So then for the for the lease and everything. And so anyway, I get the lease and they have a rule here like if you move different places like you have to like register with the city hall like to say your new address and you have to do that within like 5 days of moving. So you just have to show your paperwork and say, "Hey, I've moved here now," and they have everything. And so anyway, I brought the paperwork, but at this point this was like the 17th of December and I had just gotten the paperwork on the 14th, right?
Mhm.
So then I go to the office and then the guy's like putting in my paperwork. He's like, "Oh, but you moved in on December 1st." He's like, "We have to charge you a fine of 400 euros." And I was like, he's like, "Yeah, because you have to move, you have to announce it within 5 days." And I was like, "Oh no." He goes, and I was like, "Yeah, but my landlord didn't send it to me. Like he didn't have a chance to send it to me yet." And he goes, "Can you prove that?" And I just showed him an email on the phone and he was like, "Oh, okay." And it
Awesome.
was just like common sense. It was
Yeah.
like, yeah, he's not trying to like trick the system. It's like, this is what happened. He goes, yeah, he goes, well, just next time, make sure that you try to get it in within the 5 days. And it was just so nice because I know, sadly, if this had happened in Germany, it's like, yeah, that's not my problem. You still have to pay because these are the strict rules.
Or
Not looking at
here.
the kind of gray, or in America as well, not looking at the gray, like just being like, yep, that's it, you have to pay. So another thing that's super I'm not gonna lie, it has been incredible to just know that like since I've been here, like health and it's all covered. Like it's
Ugh.
really amazing, and everybody pays the fee. And if you can't pay, the government will supplement that cost just to make sure that everybody in the country has health insurance and are covered. And like you can just Yeah, you just go and they actually like they set up your doctor within like I don't even know if it's like a 500-meter radius of where you live. So like my dentist is literally a walk down the street. My
Mm.
GP is on the other side of the street. Everything is just so it's
That's a good,
easy.
that's
It's
actually, I have
easy.
a question about that. So like, do you have the choice though? Just say you find a doctor that you really like, can you leave that radius? Do you have to
You
pay more? Is there some sort of thing
So
or?
you can, and there are, and the same is like, so at least in the Netherlands, they have it's kind of like a private health insurance that is regulated by the government. So essentially, every health insurer is the same, pretty much, and you can
Amazing.
also add on things. Yeah, they're
Hmm.
private, but you can add on things. They're highly checked on and regulated. So it's like it's not like no funny business, you know?
Yeah.
And so, like, if you do select like a plan that does allow for that, then you can do that, and that's not much of a more of a cost if you want that. But like, that's totally an option. But in general, like, people just they also trust the level of their experts. Then they say that like it shouldn't really matter as much. But I can understand, particularly if you're looking for like a gynecologist or someone like you'd really want to have someone that you really feel at ease with, and
Yeah.
and
Well,
so
yeah, in
so
my case, it's like I have Hashimoto's, which is a thyroid disorder. So I see, in addition to having a GP, I see a functional medicine practitioner as well. So it's like
yeah,
really like a specialized kind of thing. And
yeah.
so, like trying to find someone who provides that
Oh,
kind of.
but that would also be accounted for in the system. Specializations, like for sure. Like I actually, it's one of these funny things that happened. I think you get like 6 or 9 like physiotherapy sessions for free every year. So you can just be like, I'm just gonna get a massage. Like, yeah, seriously. So you can, it's just built into your plan. Like it's either not gonna use it or you're gonna use it. But I was having some issues with my hip old age anyway. No, but it has just been really tight. I'd been doing a lot of like training and stuff like that. It got really tight, and so like I went in and I like asked them about like dry needling. It's similar to acupuncture. And then they were like, yeah, you can do that, and then they just did it, and it was like covered. Like it's like things like that. Like I'm so that's where I'm so thankful, because like it's a thing that I don't have to think about all the time. And when I was in and when I'm back in the States actually, then I'm thinking about it again, because I'm like, if I get sick over here, Lord. So
It
that's
takes
kind of
so much bandwidth. Like when I tell you,
does.
if I were to tell you how much money I have on my credit card, because I kind of treat it like an HSA because
Yeah,
I have to pay up front and then submit it and then I'll get reimbursed. But
get reimbursed.
the
Yeah.
company I'm with can take 8 to 10 months to reimburse. So it's
No
like, cool,
way.
I get points on my credit card, but I'm also paying all of this like
Yeah.
APR on it, or
Yeah.
interest on it. And so it's costing me way more than what it should cost. And it's like,
Of course.
looking at that number every month, even though I know it's not like real debt, it's just like, oh my
I
God,
know. Yeah.
it does take up so much bandwidth. And I wonder a lot of times, I wonder what else I'd be capable of doing if I wasn't constantly, I have a whole pile of about like $2,000 in bills I need to submit today.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I've been like putting it off because I'm just like, oh my God, I don't want to make the phone calls. I don't want to like do
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
thing.
and that's the other thing, is that again, like that whole process, like the other thing that I really appreciate about the Netherlands versus Germany is that Germany is still very much this is actually a great story. So, when I was leaving Germany and I was moving to the Netherlands, I had to, of course, end my phone plan in
Mhm.
Germany and then get a new plan here in the Netherlands. So, when I had to submit to end my phone plan, first off, in Germany, everything you have to cancel 3 months in advance,
Gosh,
or else it will auto renew. Yeah.
goodness.
So, I want you to guess how I had to submit my cancellation for
Like
my
snail mail.
phone plan. Fax machine.
What?
I'm
Who's
not kidding.
this machine?
And I was here, and then they were like, we've never, and then I found one in the city, and then they were like, we've never used this. Like, we can't believe we even have it. So I had to fax this, and I had, so it was a deadline, because I had to do it before the
Yeah.
3 months of it, like, and I luckily got it done, but
Like, did I
like,
just get
I'm
transported
like,
back to the 90s when
but you could have just, it could have been an email, like, or like, anyway, yeah. So everything is very digitized here in the Netherlands. So that's in one way that's also really good, because then even for like all of the things you were just talking about, your like paperwork you have to submit, there's a portal. You just if you get anything, you just throw it in there, and then they just send you the money straight to your account. Like I don't know, I've gotten it within like 5 days. Yeah,
That's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
yeah,
I love
yeah.
efficiency.
Yes, I love it. I love so, and also efficiency and common sense. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. That's for me. It's like I don't want to keep going on about it, but I like it here.
I mean, listen, it suits you. You
Yeah.
look like you're glowing, you know?
No,
I
it's just the
love
light. It's the no.
I love this for you.
Yeah, thank you. No,
Well, like
no.
in terms of more like personal stuff, how has it felt dating, making friends? Like
Yeah,
what's that process been like? I mean, because I feel
yeah,
like when we left New York and moved to Nashville, I was shocked at how different it was to make friends as an
yeah,
adult versus a 19-year-old, you
yeah,
know? It was so much harder like to find true like real deal friends,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, on one side, I was also a little bit lucky because I had visited quite a few times before I moved.
Mhm.
So I did know some musicians and stuff like that. I mean, that's not my core friends right now, but like I feel that like in the Netherlands at least, and all of these, all let me just say, every European country you speak to, like every person from every European country you speak to, they're like, yeah, but we're very closed off people. We don't really like to like open up. And then I'm like, yeah, but you're not proving it because you're always like, hey, Norman, do you want to come along or do like, you know? And so like what I found was that like if you yourself are open and just literally just standing in your own truth and being like this is who I am, that alone is enough to get people to gravitate to you because I do think what I see a lot of Americans who are living here in the Netherlands, again, are working for like a lot of multinational companies. So they already have their kind of like built in group of friends. And
Sure.
sadly, they don't really venture out into the actual culture.
Hmm.
And so, and that I think is kind of a sad thing because yeah, of course it's comfort in your familiarity, but at the same time you're missing out on this complete other side and you hear about people like, "Oh my gosh, they lived here 10 or 20 years and they can't say a word of Dutch." And the good thing is that the society because the Netherlands everybody speaks such a good level of English, like you kind of don't need to, but then you kind of do because you're like missing out. You're like the outsider in an inside conversation always. And the
Yeah.
things that you're missing are really things that could make your life easier, could make your life more enjoyable and really like root you in the experience of living here.
Yeah.
But I think just like being open and just being like consistent, yeah, and just being like your authentic self. I think that's been the biggest thing I think people have always said to me because again, people say like, "Oh my gosh, Americans are like they say I love you and then they disappear and then they like, they're very flaky and then they're hot and then cold and they're all superficial and blah, there's all these kind of like assumptions and then they're like yeah but you're different. I'm like yeah, yeah, I'm just me. I'm also an American, so
Yeah, we're not all the same
we're
way.
not
We
all the same,
promise.
so yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, I guess unless there's any other tips, tricks, thoughts you want to give people, I guess my last question would be like, does it feel like home yet? And if it does, like when did that start to feel that way for you?
Oh, that's a good one. And that's the one that's really kind of like I always am very confronted when I'm faced with that question because I think about it a lot. I do feel at home here. And
Hmm.
like I don't and the thing is I've always had to question it because I think in some ways I kind of feel like I lived in the small town. I lived in DC. I lived in New York. I lived in Berlin. Now I'm living here in Amsterdam and it's like are you really is it really your place or are you going to bounce around to another place again? And
Which is
and I
okay
just
too.
hmm?
Which is okay too, you
Which
know?
that is
Yeah.
okay, but I really feel that like this is a place I feel so grounded here. When I fly back, I'm always like, oh my gosh, I'm back home. And then like, did I say that? And it just feels right. And I guess the best answer is like, yeah, it feels home. It feels like home. And like it feels like a place where I can really settle in. I can go out into the world, but then also I can always come back and feel like a sense of, no, this is my place. So
Yeah.
that feels really good after again the Norman the Nomad life. But I wanted to say a couple of things. I think, before we had this conversation, you had mentioned something about what are some of the culture shocks,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and oh man. Oh, so some great ones. So I'm trying to think. The first one was well, first off, here in the Netherlands, the fact that like biking is the standard form of transportation, like from the CEO of a company down to like the kids like going to school, like everybody's on a bike everywhere. Also, you will pass by people that have three or four people on one bike, and I'm like, y'all, chill out. Like, what is this? And they have this thing called a bakfiets, which is basically a wagon that's a bike, and then they just and parents just throw their kids in the wagon and just bike around the city with the kids like hanging out in the wagon. No seatbelt,
Oh my
no.
God.
Yeah, exactly. Then you have credit cards are rarely used. That was a thing that was really shocking to me because I was like, but how do you live? Like you like in America, if you don't have a credit card, geez, even to
Yeah.
like pay for flights. And it's just what I realize is that the cost of everything is very reasonable.
Mm.
And so because of that, you can pay for things straight out of, and listen, I'm not balling in any way, but I'm able to pay for flights. I'm able to pay for my groceries. I'm able to pay for like, all these things that like normally I many times would use a credit card for. And you can get credit cards. Like I have a travel card just in case, but like it's not a necessity. Even if you have a card, it's not predatory. Like the rates aren't so crazy that like you're like, oh my gosh, now I can't pay it. I'm back behind.
Mhm.
So that's been something shocking.
That's
Nobody
just
uses
that just leads you into like also again that's like more bandwidth you have because you're not so consumed by thinking about your debt constantly. Like I think a
exactly.
lot of people are here, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, for sure. And to that, there's nobody uses checks. I guess people in America don't use really checks anymore, but like that was like a thing that I was like, but how do you pay for rent? It's like, oh, you send it in like directly to the guy. Like you just, oh yeah, I wrote one other thing down. This was very funny to me because like the very first like Dutch friends that I met, I'm still in touch with them. Like a couple, they just had a baby. Like so, I went a couple months ago just to see them, have dinner with them, meet the baby, and they were really some of my like original friends. Like when I went on my first tour here, like I met them there. And so like one of them like years ago had her birthday and I was in town visiting. And so she was like, Norman, I want you to come to my birthday. Again, very we're very closed off people. We don't let you
Yeah.
in. And so I'm there at the birthday, and it's all Dutch, and it's in this old. They call it a brown bar, which we call a dive bar. It's just old dark brown bar. So it's
Okay.
and so we're in this place, and then they're all sitting around in a circle, and I was like, okay. So I like sit also in the circle, and so then she gives a little like speech, like thank you so much for coming. They bring out the cake, and then they all say this word, gefeliciteerd. And gefeliciteerd means congratulations. So nobody says happy birthday. They all say congratulations. And then the friends congratulate the other friends for that friend's birthday. So I get a congratulations for being her friend on her birthday. I'm like,
I'm trying to
yeah,
wrap my head around. I mean, yeah, I
right.
guess like
Yeah, it's like congratulations,
congratulations
Norman.
and your friends, like totally
Exactly.
one.
Yeah, exactly. And like congratulations that you made it another year. Like, it's
Oh
like
my gosh.
yeah. So it's not happy birthday, it's congratulations.
That
So
just
so that's a really funny, yeah. So
I
anyway,
love
like
that. Yeah, that's
yeah.
yeah, I would have never thought of something like that, you know?
Yeah, right? And it's like, okay, like thank you. But okay, the downside is though that like on your birthday, you usually buy the drinks, which is very opposite in America.
Oh,
You buy the
okay.
drinks for everyone. It always balances out because then you go to their party and then they buy drinks for you.
Yeah.
But I was like, I let people, I was like, listen, it's my birthday. I'm still American. Like, I'm like, y'all are buying me drinks. Like,
I was born in
I was
America.
born in America. Exactly. Exactly.
This is my loophole
So
for
that's my loophole. I'm like, yeah, I'll buy you a drink, but you're buying me drinks for sure for my birthday. Like,
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
Norman, thank you so much for doing this. I'm just so happy that you are living a life that feels so authentic to you and that you're such an incredible example to people of like how you can actually make this happen and make it work and you see it for yourself and then you take the steps to make it a reality, you know?
Yeah.
Again, like it's something that I think people talk about a lot and talk about wanting to do and then just think that like they're not capable of making it happen for themselves. And
Yeah.
to see this boy from small town Tennessee
Exactly.
all the
Listen,
way
listen.
over to the place,
Exactly. He's
just
over there in
bragging,
Europe now.
right?
No, but I don't want to, and I don't want to end this on the negative note. But there was a couple of things I did want to say. A couple other things is that like the downside is that like it's not a downside. It's just the reality of anytime you move or you leave a place. Like I definitely lost friends, and
Mm,
that was really a sad thing. Like some of my closest friends that I had in New York, totally ghosted, they're gone. And then on the other side, that distance in some ways actually strengthened some friendships, so that we're more intentional about staying in touch.
yeah.
Danny. And just like also, yeah, just realizing that like, this is a process, and as you go through it, the last thing you can do is beat yourself up for not knowing about something or knowing how to do something, but just be, like you said, very curious. That's the thing that has kind of saved me in so many ways. Is just being like, so how does that work? How do you do that? Oh, who's the guy you use for taxes? What bank do you think is the best one for? And like, I'm like, they live here. They know. I
Yeah.
don't know. Like, so
Yeah.
just really be open and just ask every question, and nobody's gonna be like, oh, why are you asking that? And I have to say that that is something that I've really also appreciated about Dutch culture, is that like everything's on the table. There's no real like shame things like, oh, you didn't know how that worked. Oh no, this is how it works. And
Wow.
it's just so nice to just know that you can just kind of like say that thing or ask that question, and nobody's gonna like judge you or like be like, oh, they don't even know how this works.
You just like really struck a chord with me on that
Yeah.
because that's something that I am continually working through, but that I've done a lot of work on it. Like from childhood, I always felt like, and I don't know if this is like just a me thing or if it's an
Mm.
American thing or what, but
It's definitely an American thing. I'm gonna say it. For
okay.
sure. For
Just like
sure.
that feeling like you need to know everything, and
Yeah.
it's like, how are you possibly able to know everything in the whole world? Like it's not
No.
possible. And it's like this sort of, I don't know if it's like an American superiority complex of like we can't
Ooh.
be vulnerable and to straight up say we don't know something. And I actually would start to say to people, especially in like when I first started out in music, I was in jazz, and there's
Mm-hmm.
definitely this like
Oh, there's an arrogance there for
oh
sure.
my God.
For
And it would be
sure.
like if I hadn't heard some obscure record from like 1957,
Yeah.
like people would be like, oh my God, you don't know that? And I'd be like, of course I don't know it. I
Yeah,
was born
exactly.
in 1984,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
like I'm just learning about this art form,
Right.
and there's
Yeah.
so much that I haven't heard yet, that I haven't seen yet, I haven't
Yeah.
experienced yet. So like, why are you making me feel bad about it? And
And
I noticed the more I was able to say that, and the more I was able to, especially as I started teaching more, like present that option of vulnerability to my students and be like,
yes.
ask me. Like there, I will never make you feel like an idiot for asking
No.
something. And
No.
hoping that that translates into other areas of their lives as well. I
Yeah.
think that's such a beautiful quality to cultivate.
And it's really appreciated here. And let me just say, and one other kind of like element of kind of doing this kind of comparison between American culture and like at least Dutch culture, there's been so many times where like, in the US, like if you don't want to go to something or you don't want to do something, you can't just say I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
That's rude. That's horrible. That's so like disrespectful that somebody had invited you and like I don't want to go to that bar. And here like my friends are always like, "Hey Norman, do you want to go to this bar?" And then I'm like, they see a hesitation. They're like, we're Dutch, right? It's okay to just say like you don't want to go. That doesn't mean that we're no longer friends. It just means
Yeah.
you don't feel like going. And it's really made me more honest with myself and with like my friends as well, to just be like, yeah, I'm just not feeling it tonight though. So and they're like, oh, no worries, all good. Just wanted to invite you next
Yeah.
time, and there's no worry that like I've ruined a friendship or caused any type of like pain or hurt or something.
It's not a
And
personal
it's
affront.
not a personal affront.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so
Yeah.
that's been really nice to kind of like let go of. The downside is sometimes when I'm back in New York and people are like, hey, do you want it? I'm like, no, I don't feel like it. Oh. So then I have to like balance it. I'm like, I'm back in America now, Norman.
Yeah.
Navigate it a little bit. Like, like So yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I've just finished reading the Four Agreements. Have you read
Oh
that?
no, but I've heard of, yeah, this is good.
So
Yeah.
good. But one of the agreements that you have to make with yourself is to not take things personally, and
Ooh,
it's definitely
that's
a
a yeah,
process.
I'm still in process with that because definitely some people will say something that's very direct, and then at least now I will say like, "Did you mean it that way?" Which
Yeah,
used to never say it like, and really meaning it as in like, let me clarify that before I
yeah.
go in or before
Not
I
like
like,
a did you mean it that way?
yeah, no, it's like, yeah, it's like because there's also, I mean, like again, there are certain things that like get lost in translation. Like I had
Yeah.
another buddy that said, I'm gonna try to think of a phrase that like a lot of like Dutch people just translate directly from Dutch to English, and I'm like, and it's the same. I do it all the time now in English, and like it doesn't work that way. If you wanted to say something like, if you say like I'm giving up, we would just say I'm giving up, but they would say specifically because you have to like name the thing, you say I'm giving it up. If you say I'm
Oh,
giving it up,
oh.
and I always have to tell them it's like, no, just say I'm giving up. Like just say like you're not giving it up. Like like it's like exactly. So there's these little moments of like, oh no, you're not saying that. You just say
Oh
I'm
my
giving up.
God.
And also people are like, yeah, please let me know when I'm saying that
Something that
incorrectly.
doesn't
So
translate.
doesn't translate. Yeah.
Oh, that's
So
so great. Yeah, there's so much confusion, but also joy to be found, I think, in
exactly.
having
And it's
these
and like
experiences.
that's the part where it's like enjoy the journey. Like as I'm learning this, I've already passed all the like integration exams, which is amazing.
Amazing.
So I'm already at like a decent level and I'm gonna take some other exams this next month just to like really lock it in. And that's a higher level, so I'm a little bit nervous about that. But like I just feel that like you know what, do it all in the mindset that like this is all an exploration. You weren't supposed to have all the answers when you got here, but now you're learning, and people are here to like really support. And I just feel that like all my friends are just like, we're so proud you're doing this. I just saw a buddy earlier, it's like, you speak Dutch now, and I was like, well, I don't want to say that. They're like, yeah, but if you have any questions, let us know.
I love it. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy
Oh,
that
thank you,
you
Danny. Thanks for asking me to do this. So good, and what a great way for us to hang out. I miss you.
I know. No, I'm so happy that you were down to do it. I knew that
Yeah.
you would be like the perfect person to talk to about this, and that people were just gonna love you. And yeah, tell everyone like what you're working on now, or like where they can find you and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So I was just in New York because I just released a song with a very good buddy of mine, Jason Kriveloff. We released a song on Defected slash Glitterbox Records, and that's based in London. So I flew back to do the like release show. So that's already out, and it's a house music song, which again talk about the period of expanding. I never would have imagined I was going to be on a house music track, but it's doing well and everybody's liking it so far.
It's
So
awesome. It's so
getting some
fun.
good reviews, and like and that was also something like, oh, I would like to do more of that. That was great. I also started an impact platform, which I think I told you about. It's called Music Makes Change. And the concept there is that like I get live musicians to do a performance, paid performance around always around a certain theme. Yeah, and so we've been tackling the issue of like belonging and loneliness because this is a perfect time for all of this. The way
Yes.
that the event flows is that like I have the musician do a performance, and then I moderate a talk with the musician, and then I invite also a local organization who does work around that theme. So, say a volunteer organization. And so then we have a talk about that theme and how it's kind of affected them both personally and for their work. And then the last part is that everyone who attends the event does 1 hour of community service with that local organization. So you can actually
Norman,
create a direct action from the event.
I
So,
didn't know that you were doing that. That sounds
yes.
amazing. What a
Yeah, and it's
great
called
way.
Music Makes Change. I'll send you the link. I'll send you the link.
Yes, please do, and I'll put
Yeah,
it in all of the social stuff, and
great.
this will go on YouTube, so I'll
Yeah,
put that in the links and stuff and everything too.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is so cool.
So,
I love the way your brain works.
thank you,
Works.
Danny.
But thank you so much for doing this. It's so good to
My
see your
pleasure.
face. I know
You
that this is
too.
going to really help a lot of people kind of wrap their heads around what this process would be like to
Yeah.
move on to somewhere else and just try something new and maybe like, really be where they're supposed to be. Love you so
Never
much.
in my wildest dreams would I have imagined I'd be living in the Netherlands, but here I
I
am,
can see it.
and I'm loving it. Thank you.
I can see it. Isn't Norman just joy personified? I love this man so much. I hope you guys were able to take away as much as I was from everything Norman had to share about moving abroad. I know that I am reaching out to his immigration lawyer as we speak. If you want to keep up with all of the cool projects Norman's working on, as well as listen to his music, you can do that over on Instagram at Norman Vladimir. His last name is spelled Vladimir, and at Music Makes Change to attend his next event in the EU. Please subscribe, comment, and share this podcast to help us reach more listeners. It would mean the whole entire world to me. Today's special theme song is Crazy by Norman Vladimir, and First Time for Everything is produced by Two Sheilas Productions. Thank you guys so much for listening, and remember, it's never too late for your first time.